Hey guys, welcome to the Carolina Justice Report. I'm Rainee Romero with the lovely law firm here for another episode. Today I'm pretty excited about this one because we are talking about all of the things that attorneys do that they did not teach you in law school. Stay tuned. So I'm here with attorneys Sarah Austin, Amy Lawrence, and our law clerk, Andrew. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Welcome, Andrew. Welcome to the table.
Thank you. It's nice to be involved in one of these.
So I'm excited about this one because I know next to nothing about this stuff, so it's kind of interesting to me too. But Andrew, you just finished your first year of law school.
Yes.
And constantly are heard around the office saying, they don't teach you this in law school.
That's how we have this whole segment from Andrew. Yeah.
That's the truth of it. I think the law school does a really good job of teaching you like the spirit of the law and like what you need to know to be a lawyer and how to think like a lawyer. But this like opportunity this summer has been a really good experience to like watch attorneys in practice and learn a little bit about what I would need to know in order to actually have a job and represent somebody in practice.
Yeah, so that makes sense. What's like something that surprised you or that you didn't know?
How much the paralegals actually help out. I was thinking about how I would be writing demand letters and drafting summons and things like that, and then it turns out that the paralegals also know how to do that, and they've been a huge resource for me as like knowing what I would put down, and it's like they taught me how to do this in law school, but like the paralegals also know how to do it.
Yeah.
So that's
no,
cool.
that is interesting. Yeah. That's very interesting. And ladies, I mean, obviously law school was a little while ago, but you still remember some of that. Whenever you like came into practice, was there something that stuck out? Like, oh crap, nobody taught me this.
So going to law school is, and I don't mean any disrespect to Vietnam, but that's what it's equivalent to. It's like going to war, right? Like you come back with these like horror stories and war wounds and stuff like that, metaphorically. But like it's traumatic on some level because of the amount of stress that you're under. And then once you kind of figure out how to do law school, you get in your rhythm and you feel better about it. But that first year, I think, is probably the most brutal.
Well, I mean, and let's delve into that a little bit for somebody who has no clue about that kind of thing. What is traumatic about it?
Yeah, it's just the tremendous amount of pressure. Law school, by and large, all the ones that I really know of, they teach the Socratic method, where they randomly call on you, you stand up. Well, you don't have to, not everybody makes you stand up, but some professors make you stand up.
Some do.
Just depends if you're in like a class of 150 people, you know, that kind of thing. They'll make you stand up and you've got...
You're on the spot.
You're on the spot, you've got a professor that's grilling you and they're asking you 100 questions and your interpretation of the law, and it's, you know, all eyes are on you and you don't want to look like an idiot.
Yeah, and a lot of, I didn't realize till I got to law school, that there's only one test at the end. So you go to school, you try not to embarrass yourself in front of your class every day.
Right.
And then there's one test at the end, and it's one grade. So it's one chance to pass or fail. You don't have, you know, homework assignments and attendance points. That doesn't exist.
Extra credit?
Really?
There's one test, and that's it, which is very, I mean...
Per class or per
class?
Per class.
Yeah.
Okay.
But then the bar exam at the end to become a lawyer is everything.
The big daddy.
One test. And so it's kind of preparing you for that. I think it does, the Socratic method prepares you for, you know, a judge just asking you 100 questions and calling you out, or client questions. Like, we're always on the spot. So it prepares you to be on the spot a little bit, and it prepares you for the pressure of taking the bar exam.
Right.
First and foremost, I think that's what they're getting you ready for. But then just the pressures of being a lawyer, you know, a trial, a client, anything can happen where you just, we're under pressure too. So it kind of just is the mini pressure cooker before you get to like where it matters, you know, but the consequences are a bad grade. It's not a bad result for someone who needs a good result. A mini pressure cooker before you're put into like the big one.
Now, where did each of you go to law school?
So I went to a little tiny school called Appalachian School of Law in Southwest Virginia.
Okay. Sarah?
And I went to the University of South Carolina, where Andrew
That's also where I go.
That's where you go? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the thing is, I think that law school, by and large, it doesn't teach you how to be a lawyer. It just doesn't. In practice, it just doesn't. But what it does do is it teaches you, and I think Andrew hit on this, is that it teaches you the basics of the law and how to pass the bar exam. And then, you know, I think it's really I think it's unusual that with doctors, they have to do a residency, right? You have to go and you have to practice medicine and have somebody with you and looking over you to make sure you do it all right. And then, you know, I was like amazed, like I can just go hang my shingle, sign some papers, and like they're just gonna let me be a lawyer. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody's even gonna like double check my work, nothing. And you know, I always see these kids like when they get out of law school, they'll try to hang their shingle and they'll start doing criminal work, and that's the first person I make a beeline to. Now I'm practicing like 15 years now. I go and I introduce myself and I say, listen, if you ever have any questions or want to know how to, you need any forms or any motions or any of those things, you call us. We'll help you, because we know how it feels to like have somebody's life in your hands and be thrown in the deep end.
Yeah.
And really not have anybody to bounce that off of.
Because there's so many nuances in practice that are just like knowing which court to use. I mean, e-filing in general, they don't even teach you how to e-file them. So you have to, you're like, I got a bar number now, let me log on and I can file a lawsuit. I have no idea how to do this. And that's where staff also comes in. I mean, I learned.
And Google.
When I started
clerks
here,
at the clerk of court.
Yeah, when I started, I always joke that my paralegal Allison taught me everything I knew at the beginning. But she really did.
Yeah.
And between Justin and Amy sort of teaching me how to actually be a lawyer, but Allison taught me how to do all the things that lawyers need to do, like filing things, requesting things, where to send things.
The order to do it in.
Yeah, the order to do things in, which I know that Justin and Amy taught everyone else how to do. So it all came through them. But you really don't learn any of that. I could file a lawsuit, but it's like, how do I file a lawsuit?
I've heard them refer to the bar as like a legal competency test.
Yeah.
And it's like, in law school will teach you how to pass that test.
How to be competent.
Yeah, how to be competent with the legal profession. And then I think that's one of the biggest surprises to me is it's like you can go to law school for 3 years and then have no idea what you're doing.
Right.
And so I think that's really why attorneys are worth what they're worth is because of the experience that they've gained through practice. Like if I were to get in a car accident, I would be like, oh, I went to law school, so let me represent myself against this insurance company. And I would have no idea what I was doing. And all the relief that I would be entitled to, I wouldn't get because I wouldn't know how to get it. So that's why I think you really learn so much through the experience that law school cannot teach you. So.
Well, and it's interesting what you brought up about the paralegals, and you too, Sarah, is just because, it seems like paralegals are a little bit underappreciated, not in-house, but out by the general public.
Law firm.
By the general public. I didn't even know what a paralegal did prior to working in the law firm. I mean, you only think of the lawyer. You don't think of admin or paralegals or anything like that. So it's interesting that they actually do contribute so much to the process.
They are the process.
Yes.
Yeah. We're kind of leading, guiding, because the ethics and the big part of it, like the big picture of it, is on us. And they do the kind of the tedious work. We had a big meeting yesterday and a big firm dinner, and y'all heard me say this, but just like I tell my kids, it's the teamwork that makes the dream work. And our staff they're our village, they're our people, and if it weren't for them, we would be dead in the water.
Yeah, I would not know.
And they know how much we love and appreciate them because we tell them all
and I think
time.
that it would be if you're a client or a potential client, keep that in mind too. I know sometimes there will be people who want to bypass the staff and they think that they don't know what they're talking about, but the staff is really the backbone of any law firm, and they know what's going on with your case, and we're all involved in it. But don't overlook those people and how much they know and how much they've learned too. I mean, Allison's been here longer than I have. I know I keep bringing her up.
Yeah.
But she's seen things that even I haven't seen before.
She's a G.
Yeah.
She knows her stuff.
Yes, she does.
She does.
She looked at me one time and was like, no. And you know what I said? Yes, ma'am.
They keep us running. And so they definitely don't teach you that in law school, that you're, and I think it makes it a little scarier too, because you think, oh my gosh, I have to do all this by myself. But you're going to have a support team, and it really does take a team to be a lawyer. It's not just a one-man show.
I always tell new lawyers too, go buy cookies or cupcakes, and you go to the clerk of court's office.
Oh yeah.
And you introduce yourself to wherever county that you're practicing, and you tell them that you're a new baby lawyer, and that you're going to need help along the way, and if they would help you, that would be great, because there's nothing they love more than to help new lawyers and to teach them the right way to do things. And they will help you if you tell them what you've got. If you don't have another lawyer to bounce it off of, say, I've got this this kind of case, and they'll say, oh, there was a lawyer that had a case like that. I remember, and they'll find you that file. That way you can use it as a go-by to kind of like get a lay of the land, and then you call that lawyer, and then you can kind of put it all together.
Love that.
The clerk of courts are kind of like legal staff at your office.
That's a great tip.
They run the show, and so you just have to.
They're my people in life. Sometimes I go and lay in their floor and do snow angels. And
I think that
to this day, 15 years later, they're my people. I love them so much.
And they don't teach you that in law school. That you obviously respect the judges and all that, but the court staff there is they schedule. I mean, they can help you when you're lost and you just don't know where you're going and it's embarrassing.
Yeah,
you can walk in there and be like, "Help me," and I've done that. So that's where you go for.
I've had a white baby spit off like my suit. Yeah. Watch my baby. I had when Cash was born. I'd been practicing like 2 years and I didn't have a sitter, but I had to go to this, and I would go and sit him on their. He'd be asleep in his little car carrier because Justin would be in one court and I'd be in another, and Tammy at the clerk of court. God bless her. In fact, every year I send her flowers just because she would watch my baby. For that 10 minutes, I'd run into a hearing, and then I'd run back out. And she's like, "Oh, he's still asleep. Don't you worry." Or I'd come in, and she'd be loving on him. And
great.
That's one thing that seems really different about the actual practice.
Yeah.
Is like your first day of law school. You walk in the door, you're all like nervous, and then all of a sudden it's like you get hit, and it's like super adversarial, like right off the jump, and it's like. I'm competing against not only the 70 people or however many are in your section for the top grades, but you're competing against your entire like 1L, 2L, 3L class for your class rank and such for your job opportunities. But it's like when you get out and actually start practicing, like everyone's helping everybody out, and even like opposing counsel, like they're all, it's very like communicative, and it's people are trying to help each other. So that's definitely something I was not expecting when I think we all know that
practice. And I don't think that's like that just everywhere though. I think that South Carolina it's a little different, especially in Horry County, Georgetown County.
When you're with Amy, everybody helps.
Well, I think it's just matter of fact, we were in New Orleans recently, and Justin and I talked at a conference, and one of the things that I talked about was that just be really good and kind to people and treat them with respect. It goes so far. People always want to help you when you're really good to people. And it just makes it a lot easier. And I think we're really lucky that in this county, particularly our little judicial circuit, everybody's so everybody's really helpful. Even being opposing counsel, it's like if someone called me and said, "Amy, I really need to reschedule this mediation. My kid's sick." No problem. Don't you worry.
Yeah.
Babies come first, or whatever that might look like for whatever.
Yeah, well, it's definitely not as cutthroat once you get out of law school as they make you feel it is. And I've got friends that practice in New York, and they're just like, would not even acknowledge opposing counsel if they walked, into each other in the grocery store. That's how hostile it is there.
Yeah.
We don't have that here.
I hug every one of them, right?
Yeah, I see them, and it's all good. It's just
not every one of them.
Most of them.
I think one of the things that we can do in South Carolina is, you leave it all in the courtroom. We're all advocating for our clients and doing our jobs, but when we leave, it's not personal, and it's not. Where at law school, it can feel very personal.
Feels very personal.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to touch on what you were saying, Amy, because I was in those conferences in New Orleans, and the question that was kind of asked on this discussion panel of all of these, great lawyers that were doing good things in their areas, was just kind of like, what is the one thing that you kind of feel is really like detrimental to your firm and could really help? And it was kind of like all these business
SEO, website development,
marketing, and technological answers. And then it gets to Amy, and Amy's like, "I'm going to be a little different." But what she said was great, exactly what you said. As far as be kind to people, help people. It goes a long way. That comes back to you. And then the whole room just like erupted in applause. And so it's great. And I think that shows kind of your character and why you receive all that help.
Well, yeah, I think that lawyers sometimes forget this, and I'll probably come to your law school and give this speech because I give it to a lot of them, but somewhere along the way we forget in the practice of law why we do it, right? I got into being a lawyer and because I wanted to help people.
And I think if you read 90% of personal essays, we all wrote that.
That's what I wrote in mine. So.
Everybody wrote that in there.
And somewhere along the way, in the Socratic method and gunning, the gunner, there's always a gunner. Gunning or jockeying for a position in your law school class and trying to find your first job and do your first cases, that you somewhere along the way, you lose sight of that. And if you kind of keep that at the heart of your practice, that you really just want to help people and do right by people and try to do the right thing, then the rest kind of follows. You know, we talked about in that conference, at that talk, that panel, is that, you know, the biggest cases that have ever come through our office had nothing to do with SEO or Google AdWords or whatever you want to call it. It was, we were just really good and kind to people and talked to them like normal people. Because I think a lot of times we want to look smart so badly, to look like we justify our prices and all that stuff.
And I think that it comes from law school, trying to prove yourself all the time. Like, we're always trying to prove that, like, we
belong here. I'm not an imposter.
Yeah, even when you're in court, you're like proving to the jury, you know, like, I'm here for a reason. Like,
yeah, no, totally.
That gets ingrained in you right when you start law school.
And we lose, and so when that happens, you lose sight of like why we're doing what we're doing. And so those big cases that have come through our doors have been, you know, the lady at the Chinese restaurant who was a waitress we always just talked to, like, you know, and asked about her kids and blah, blah, blah. And so those are the cases that have come through our doors. They came out of just being really respectful and kind to everybody. And giving our card out and telling them if they ever need anything, and they will call us. And even if it's stuff we do not do, we always point them in the right direction to where they'll get the best representation, the best service at a good price, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
And so, you know, talking about kind of your backgrounds into law, I know, Sarah, you started with a lovely law firm kind of right out of law school, which was great.
Yeah, I was lucky.
Yeah. But Amy, you know, you and Justin, I know you were ahead of Justin a year in law school. And so you were kind of already working when Justin got out, and you guys started the practice right away. Tell me about what that was like, because that's kind of an untraditional route.
So
what did you have to learn through that?
So in law school, after my first year, I interned at, I'm from North Carolina, Justin's from Tennessee, we went to law school in Virginia. So everybody was asked how we ended up in Myrtle Beach. And my parents had a house here. And I had met Greg Hembry, who was the head solicitor at the time in Horry County, and he offered me an internship. And I came, and all the lawyers were so nice. One year, because I really liked everybody I dealt with. Everybody that came through that courthouse and the judges and stuff were just really, it wasn't that adversarial like grind. It's a statistics game. So it just worked out. And I kind of made the life decision for us that we were going to be at the beach. And so I worked for an attorney for like right at a year. And Justin came out of school, and it was during the recession after 2008. And because that's when I got out of law school and passed the bar. I started in 2008. So nobody was really hiring after that. I knew I didn't want to work for anybody anymore.
Yeah. So
I wanted to have my own thing, and Justin's an incredible partner to have, not just personally but also in business. And so we opened up shop. We rented a 10 by 10 office. We shared a desk. We had a chair on each side of it, and our dog. And when he would meet with clients, I'd go walk around the block, and the opposite for me. And then if he was trying a case, I'd sit second chair and help him in any way I could. Sometimes that was just like stapling stuff, and sometimes that was taking witnesses, whatever that looked like. And, we just grew it. And we just always tried to stay true to, we really wanted to help people and do the right thing. And then if we could do all that, we just figured the rest would follow.
Which is insane.
Yeah.
Because Andrew can test. Like, imagine just passing the bar and being like, all right, here I go. Yeah. And what I've learned from Justin is, Justin will read like 1,000 books. Okay, so like, you think you're gonna stop? Like, I'm not reading after law school and after the bar exam. No, because that's where all the answers are. Like, I've learned everything from them, but also I'll have a question and I'll ask Justin, and I'll come back the next morning and there'll be 4 books on my chair. Like, if you want to know how to do this,
don't ask Justin if you want to know, or do.
You need to read it. And so it's just, just to think about him coming out of law school and you with like your limited experience for a year.
I remember,
and just being like, all right.
So you're going to try your first case. You're like, okay. Start reading as fast as you can.
Try a case
opening
for dummies.
Yeah.
You got a highlighter, and you realize you've highlighted every page and every line.
That's how they built this whole thing, which is just to have this conversation about what you don't learn how to do that in law school. And so they really did have to teach themselves and then teach the rest of us what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
It is crazy, and it's inspiring.
Which is why, and Sarah does this too now, like when we see new lawyers, we automatically go to them and say,
it's going to be fine.
It's going to be good.
I'm praying.
It's going to be great. It's going to be great.
I have templates if you need.
Right. We have templates for everything. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. And if you have questions, you can always call us.
Yeah.
Always bounce stuff off of us.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think that business mindset that you're talking about, kind of Justin having, is something that kind of applies to every field, like what you don't learn in school is kind of how to run a business. Like any school, I feel
well,
like that applies
that's
to.
where law firms fail. Like, it's not that people aren't great lawyers. There are some amazing lawyers out there, and they're just not good business people.
Right.
And they definitely don't teach you how to run your own firm.
Right.
That should be a class.
Right.
Just like we now have a financial responsibility class in high school. They should teach you. That should be a claess in law school.
Yeah, I think so too.
I think it's their goal, though. It almost seems like it a little bit that they want to get as many people in like the bigger firms as they can. But it's almost like I think it would help the school's rankings, and it's like, oh, we have so and so many graduates.
Now with the top tier big
1 year
law
out of
firms.
school, we have 60% of our graduates 1 year out of school are making this much at this big firm, and I think that's like
It's a statistics game.
Yeah.
The thing is like, and granted, I'm 15 years at a law school in practice. All of my friends that went into, we call it big law in lawyer school land. Lawyer school land. I always called it lawyer school because it just didn't sound as pretentious when I said it, right?
Yeah.
Sound more warm and inviting and not as, I'm smarter than you. But when all my friends that went into big law, there's not a quality of life. When you have to get this exorbitant amount of billable hours, where do you fit in having a baby, right? Or where do you fit in having a life or children or a husband or like, I don't know, karaoke. I don't know, whatever you like to do, golf. You just can't get to
I
there.
always joke with my friends in big law that I'm the reason they have a job, because there is no big law if there's not little law out there suing people and trying to do justice. Those jobs don't exist. Insurance defense firms and transaction and stuff, they don't exist without the plaintiff's lawyers or family lawyers or criminal defense lawyers really making a scene.
I couldn't imagine representing, like you were talking about earlier. It's like, oh, you broke your neck in a car accident. Well, sorry, I'm just going to say the insurance company only values your ability to walk at this much money.
Yes.
I could not imagine doing
Insurance
that.
defense attorneys. Like, I don't
And
know.
that's a joke, but big law big law doesn't exist without the rest of us here to give
Hold
them
them accountable
to give
and
them
make 'em
problems
hustle.
to try to solve.
Yeah.
Andrew, I'll ask you, before we kind of wrap up, if there was, I know that there's probably things every day that you're like, didn't know that. Yeah. But was there, I think what you said about paralegals was a really great comment. So I'm just going to ask if there was anything else that kind of stuck out like that.
I mean, I think it also sticks out just how, like, at least in our office, how inviting everybody was. Like, I remember walking in on the first day, and everyone knew who I was before I even walked in the door. So it was like they were expecting me.
Yeah.
And it was like super welcoming. And Sarah has been nothing but like helpful and guiding me along, instructing me on like what to do, what not to do. Here's how this should be done in like a constructive way,
right.
Instead of more of like, no, I don't like the way you've done this.
Yeah.
It's always been like, in the future, this will get you a better result. So,
that's pretty good, Sarah.
I mean,
very diplomatic.
That's a compliment.
It is a compliment. Yeah, it's awesome to see that the attorneys in our office are actually looking out for me, and they're like, well, we want you to be the best lawyer you can
It's
possibly
not
be.
stuffy.
Yeah,
100%.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the coolest thing, I think.
Awesome. I love that.
I think our mindset is also, I want everybody to shine. I want everybody to do good. I want everybody to be happy. And I think that there's so often, especially in the personal injury game, and is that people think that like, in order for me to win, you have to lose. You know what I mean? And we're competing against some of these big personal injury plaintiff firms for cases and to represent clients and stuff, but there's enough business for all of us, and we can all be successful and happy along the way.
Yeah,
I'm not so worried about that.
I love that.
And I think at the end of the day, it's really not about us. It's about our clients and about doing good for injured people. And so training Andrew up to help injured people and get better results is not just
Better for all of us.
Yeah, it's not just good for us. It's good for those people out there that he's going to be a great lawyer one day.
Yeah.
I just like how I feel comfortable turning anything in because I know at the end of the day I'm not going to get reprimanded if it's bad. I'm just going to be told how to do it better in the future.
Right. That is great. And it allows you need those mistakes, right? It allows you,
You have to have
improve.
them. If you don't, you'll never figure out. Like, if I would just turn things in and the attorneys in the office said, oh, we're not going to use this anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just like, this is busy work for him to do.
Right.
Like, I would never learn anything.
Right.
So that's why I'm like, that's the coolest coolest thing.
Yeah. Well, and to play off of Amy, what you were saying, you know, as far as there being enough for all of us, I remember when I started as, you know, the marketing director here, and I was with Justin, and part of what I know in marketing is to also assess what's around, who's the competition, what's going on. And so I was kind of like, what is like the relationship with other law firms? Like what, you know, do we have competition? He was like, we don't worry about other law firms. You know, we don't worry about what they're doing. We just worry about what we're doing. Yeah. And I always thought that that was so cool because it always comes back into my mind. If I ever see different law firms or whatever, you know, just on a billboard or whatever, I'm just kind of like, I don't worry about them. I don't worry about them.
I hope they're successful. I hope you're doing good work for their
And each one has a totally different vibe and feel and, you know, employees and everything else. So you just, they're not really the same, even though they kind of do similar work. So I just always thought that that was cool, that he was like, we don't worry about that.
Yeah, what did they say? A rising tide floats all boats.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the better they do, we all have a common enemy, which is the insurance company.
Yeah.
And so when they win, then the insurance company might be more likely to pay our clients and be more fair. And so I think the plaintiff's bar, all attorneys, I mean, South Carolina has a great community, but the plaintiff's bar especially is very, you know, when somebody's going to trial,
we're workshopping it
four
together.
other law firms there. Like, what can we bring you? How can we get a good result for your client and for our clients and everybody? And so the competition is a healthy competition.
Yeah.
But mostly it's just a support system.
I love that. I love that. Well, I feel like we could talk about this forever. There's so many topics, but before we kind of close this out, I do want to kind of go down the line and maybe get like your one piece of advice for a new lawyer coming out of law school. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. So my advice to everybody all the time is, you know, people always ask me that, like, what kind of advice would you give to new lawyers or women or whatever? And it's always trust your gut. It's usually right. It's usually right. That's like your spidey sense in life.
Yeah.
And if something's telling you not to take that case, don't take it. It's okay. There'll be another one, I promise. Or if something's telling you that something isn't right and you need to dig deeper, you dig deeper. Go turn over some more rocks. But your gut is your intuition. It's the universe telling you something. You should listen to it.
I like that.
Yeah.
What do you think, Sarah?
I think don't reinvent the wheel, because you come out of law school not knowing really how to practically do any of the things that you learned in law school. And sometimes I felt a little intimidated to reach out to people, ask for templates or examples, or just call them and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? And every single person that I've called has been so helpful all the time. And so just coming off of that environment from law school as a new lawyer where you think everything's so cutthroat, it's not, and everybody's kind of there to help you do better. They want to see you do well. So don't reinvent the wheel, and definitely don't be afraid to make that phone call to Amy, to me, to anybody, because we're all here to help.
I like it. All right, Andrew. I know you're not fully graduated yet, but knowing what you know now kind of through this experience, what would you say?
I would say similar in the same vein that you were talking about, how you just treat everybody like how you'd want to be treated. I think because being in law school is so cutthroat, I've kind of like realized that you're going to have your people, and as long as you treat everybody the way that you would want them to treat you, like that you can sleep easy at night, and you can make your connections and people will respect you. And it's like, if you are the person that walks around that's just like, you know, happy and good attitude, brings a good attitude to everything, then people
they want to be around
you, and then they'll send you cases or they'll want to work with you or what have you. But that's just what I would say. Yeah.
Love it. It's all great. Yeah. All right, you guys. Well, thanks so much. I feel like we need a part 2 and 3 of this. So maybe, you know, if you enjoyed this, let us know. Send us your questions, and we can kind of do a follow-up to this for maybe anything that we missed that would be helpful for you. Thank you guys for adding into this conversation. I know I learned a lot. It was interesting for me. So you guys, we drop new episodes of the Carolina Justice Report every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Send us a message. Let us know what you think, what you want to know. We are on all platforms, Instagram, Facebook, obviously here on YouTube. We're also, you can visit us on our website, justiceslovely.com. Thanks so much for watching today. We'll see you next time.
When life gets ugly, justice is lovely. The love